Okay, so now that you have your basic shapes, then we have to figure out, well, what exactly do we do with them? Well, let's draw a couple of things using these shapes, and I think that will help us. So if you can draw along, that would be great. I'm just going to think of some really random things to draw, and then we'll use shapes to get at them. Okay, so first thing in the morning, most people have a cup of coffee, right? Let's do a cup of coffee. So if we're going to do a mug, and you think about a mug, it most resembles this shape right here. So we're going to start with that. It's not really that tall, so we're going to make it kind of short. But remember how we drew that? We just did an oval at the top, and then we did an oval at the bottom, and we connected these two lines. And then if you remember, because perspective, we erase this middle line. And now we have something that actually looks a bit like a cup. The only thing it's really missing is kind of what makes a mug, which is the handle. So for that, I'm just going to make basically like a U going to the side. I'm going to add another inside line to show that, it has some volume to it. And then in here, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a little lip here. Think of it as like an oval, but you can only see the top part. So here's the top part of the oval. And I'm going to color that black so it looks like the coffee's inside of it. You have something that looks pretty close to a mug. Add some cool effects like steam. Know that it's a hot drink. That's a really, really simple way to draw a mug, again, using the cylinder as a base shape. Let's draw another one. What if we want to draw, for instance, a cell phone? Let's try and draw a cell phone. So that base shape is going to be pretty close to this, but it's more of a rectangle and it's a thin. So think about like a thin cube in a more of a rectangular shape. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to have this facing up. So just kind of watch what I do and see if you can follow along. I'm going to draw my first square, and it's going to look kind of crooked, like this. It's a rectangle. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm almost just like following the lines like such. And again, that's just another square inside, but we can't see those lines, of course. And then like we did last time, I'm just going to connect those lines up here, and we're going to delete or erase the inside lines. Now we have a general shape, and then to add some effects to it, otherwise it just looks kind of like a flat box. I'm going to go inside here, and I'm just going to draw, oops, I could have done that a little better, um, the screen up here. They have that little button there. Maybe they have some buttons here. It kind of looks like a cell phone. We could probably give it a little bit more shape and roundness if you think of the iPhones. They have like these curved um, corners. We can even make it a little bit flatter too. That'll probably be a little better. So we're just going to improve a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. Just trying to understand the base shape. Then going back in and seeing if we can do a little bit better of a job. And that looks like probably a lot more like a cell phone that's sitting on a table. It could be a tablet too if you made it a little wider. But again, that's a really easy um, base shape there, which is the cube, but we're drawing something that's a little bit more complex. All right, let's draw something even more complex than that. Oftentimes people ask me how I draw people. It is a very complex thing to draw, but there's a lot of good ways of simplifying it. And I actually like to use two shapes when I do this. Let's take a look at what we can do here. So I'm going to use the sphere, of course, for the head. And let's get rid of this so it's not confusing. Um, you can either actually use the cylinder or the cone, but let's use the cylinder to start and make like a very Very simple person. All right, so using those two shapes, all you got to do is start with a circle, which is, of course, a sphere, right? Mm. Again, that line is just to help me. So I'm going to draw it really lightly, actually, in red, and I'll show you how that can be useful. And then underneath this sphere, I'm going to go ahead and draw my cylinder, like this. And again, we're erasing that inside line. And now we have something that looks almost like a game piece. You know those things you might have saw in the game Life, I think it was called? The people looked kind of like this. I'll tell you why that center line is kind of useful. You actually can put the eyes right on it, and the mouth just underneath it. Looks pretty good. A little crooked smile there. Um, the other thing that's cool about this shape here is you know that the arms are going to attach here on kind of both of the corners of the cylinder, so something like this and like this, and that the legs will fall kind of somewhere in the middle, not all the way in, but you could even put him at the edge if you wanted to. I like to put him um, a little bit offset. And I can add feet here, and it helps show the orientation, so this person is facing kind of that way. And the feet help with that. You can go over your lines if you do them really lightly. I like to do that a lot. Just get a nice darker color. And now we have a really simple person. It's a little bit more sophisticated than um, just the typical stick figure that we draw. Has a little bit more volume to it. Something like this, if you're trying to draw really quickly, nothing wrong with it. But if you wanted to draw a lot of stick figure people, it gets a little bit confusing when you're trying to draw multiple people. Maybe you're trying to draw folks at a party, and people say, "Well, what's that? It looks like a field of flowers or something." Oh no, you can actually just use this method here. If I zoom in, I'll show you um, to make that a little bit more clear. So again, we're just going to do our people with our cylinders, our little feet. And because they have some volume to it, it kind of shows up better, even if they're overlapping a little bit. Maybe this person is turning in or something like that. Just looks a little bit cleaner. You can see the difference between this and this. So yeah, those are just some really nice ways of turning basic shapes into more complex things. In many ways, that's an art form in itself, but you can doodle just about anything if you just try to think about what that object is and then break down the base shapes in it. Of course, there's some little details that you might need to add and think about how you would do that, but that's kind of the fun of it. But this should be a good way to get you started. So practice those base shapes, and again, when you're thinking about drawing something, just try to think about what is the shapes that make up this object, and you should be good to go.